Hey, it's Jay Teagues, high performance coach, mindset coach, and today I'm doing a book review on a book that was recommended from Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory reading list called A Man's Search for Meaning. Apologize, it's backwards on my Kindle. That's what it looks like. It's written by Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. And it's a short read, and it's a first-person account about Viktor Frankl, who was he had training in psychology, and he lived during the time of World War II, and he was sent to a Nazi death camp. In fact, he survived through 4 of them. And it's a first-person account of how he survived. This book is incredibly popular. It's sold over 12 million copies in 24 languages, and it is one of the Library of Congress's top 10 most influential books. And this was book number 2 on Tom Bilyeu's reading list of his 25, How to Unlock Your Mind. And I'll be honest, when I first picked it up, I couldn't put it down. The first 2/3 of the book is about him and his account surviving the death camps. And then the last third of the book felt almost like a separate book entirely about his psychological aspect. He brings in a theory of logotherapy. It was really kind of dry, but overall the book is really short, and it's definitely worth picking up and reading. And he talks about if you have a reason why to live, and he quotes Nietzsche, so I'll just read the quote. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any house. So if you have a reason to live, then you can endure nearly anything. And he described the differences in the prisoners because a lot of the inmates and the prisoners gave up, and they could tell when someone started to change their behavior. Like they could tell, like, hey, this person's giving up. Within 24 to 48 hours, they were no longer going to be there with them. But some people had a will to live, and he identified those 3 reasons. And the 3 reasons that he identifies for the possible meanings of life is your work. So having significant contribution, a way to add value, something of importance to a person. The second one is love, having care and concern for someone outside of yourself. And then the third one is suffering. And this is having courage during difficult times and bearing our cross and burden through when you feel like there's no meaning of life at all, and that it's absolute suffering. And I'll read a section of the book here. It says, you will find enlightenment, gaining a sense of achievement simply by surviving. If there is a meaning to life at all, then there must be meaning in suffering. Suffering is an interdictable part of life, even as fate and death, and without suffering and death, life cannot be complete. So basically his argument is that suffering is just part of the human condition, and your attitude in that is everything. And suffering can be, it's extreme because he's talking about, suffering in a Nazi death camp, but it can be just the unpleasant daily to-do tasks that you have. Like, for example, if you dread taking out the garbage, right? So just think of a task that you absolutely hate to do. One of the things I hate to do is taking out the trash on Thursdays. There's Thursday's trash day, and I hate doing it, right? And every morning, or every Thursday morning, I kind of wake up, and I used to be like, man, I absolutely hate doing this. I dread it. I would think about it. It would actually put negative emotion in my mind. And I would try to outsource it to my kids, and we get in arguments over it. It just became like a deal, right? But what I've learned is that your attitude toward things, even unpleasant things that, a form of suffering, changes everything. And I can go into that with a negative attitude with a lot of dread and have negative emotions, or I can look at it as more of a positive way. Although I dislike the act of it, I just have reverence for it because it's just honoring the struggle of life. It's just, suffering is just part of it, and you have to do things that you don't want to do. Even mundane things as simple as that. And there are a lot of other ways that you find suffering, right? With emotions, arguments with people, doing things that you don't want to do. And I think as an endurance athlete, I get great joy out of putting myself in situations where I have long periods of physical and psychological and emotional suffering. And I've always wondered why I would do that, and why do people tend to do that. And I think that Frankl really hits home on something. with that suffering, there's a sense of achievement when you suffer. Because when I've done like races like the Dirty Kansas 200-mile bike race, or the MR340, it's a 340-mile canoe or kayak race. Those are my two big races that I've done. There are moments in that where I've questioned like my existence, like why am I doing this to myself? And I just absolutely, every fiber of my being just wants to quit. And I'll have like my little temper tantrum. I mean, I remember one year during the MR340, I was within, I'd say the last 40 miles of the race, which is probably the hardest 40 miles. 2 o'clock in the morning, the bugs were so bad on the river. It was like a swarm of like the bugs. They were like in your eyes and your ears, breathing them in. I literally had a plastic bag over my head where I poked a couple pinholes in. I couldn't shine a light because it would make it even worse, but they were just buzzing all over the place. I just broke down crying. I was just so, I was out there 2 o'clock in the morning, all these bugs, I'm sunburnt, I'm dehydrated, I'm hallucinating. I'm like, and there's no way out really, but to finish at that point. And but I'll tell you, I made the decision like, okay, I had my little pity party. I'm going to suffer through this, and it was miserable. But I'm going to tell you what, hitting that finish line, seeing my friends and family, having a cold beer, the achievement of that just was amazing. So I think Frankl is absolutely right. I think that you can find a meaning for life in suffering. And I would just challenge you to take a look at the things that you don't enjoy doing. Honor the struggle, have reverence for it, that suffering is just part of the human condition. And hopefully you never find yourself in any kind of situation that he put himself in, but he was able with his psychological training to really break it down. And the book is an epic read. And so one other quote that I'd like to leave you with which I was kind of tap dancing around about your attitude. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except for one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. You cannot control what happens to you in life, but you can always control what you will feel and do about what happens to you. So a lot of things, especially during this time with COVID and all this craziness going on in 2020, a lot of people feel like life, you can see it on social media, how they're showing up every day. For myself, it's so out of my control. I have negative feelings and emotions about a lot of things dealing with that, but I'm just keeping my head down, focusing on a self-improvement project to better myself, and being surrounded by others doing the same thing, and it feels really good. There's a lot of just feelings of despair and anger, a lot of negative emotion out there. But I'm just keeping my head down, just grinding, because that's my way of reacting to the situation. All I can do is control my own feelings and just try to turn down the volume on a lot of that and just focus on myself, because I feel that you can truly make the world a better place by making yourself a better place. So by reading books like this, working out, adding value where I can, that's how I make myself better, and that's how I add value to the world. So I hope this serves you well. If you've read the book, I'd love to hear your comments and your takeaways on the book. And I would definitely encourage you to read the book if you haven't done so. This is book number 2 in Tom Bilyeu's reading list. Like I said, it's incredibly popular. One of the most influential books in the Library of Congress, top 10, and it's a quick read and very compelling. So, love to hear your thoughts and comments on it. In the meantime, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.